Hey everyone, welcome to another segment of Oh, and Another Thing. Oats is the bonus content that we put out for everyone to listen to, where we talk about an eclectic mix of this, that's, and the others that comes up in our head. Either it's pre-podcast or post-podcast. It's basically the stuff that pops in your head while you're sitting on the toilet. Feel free to listen to any of these as bonus content. It might be some stuff that we did talk about in a previous podcast, but we wanted to give it its own little slice of time to get a little bit more in depth with it. Well, here we go. Sit back and relax as usual and enjoy. Oh, and another thing. Yo, um, thanks for listening. I hope you listen to this one throughout the end for another. It's our second segment of votes for the second season, and figured while in the midst of the uh, the eclipse and the whole totality is being viewed throughout the line of which the eclipse is supposed to be viewable. Figured why not? This would be a great time to talk about what trauma means to me, or what is trauma, what is that. And from my perspective, I think that everybody has a different take on it, and so that's what we're going to be talking about, if that's not abundantly clear in the title. And you happen to hit play because you're just a diehard fan, we really appreciate that, but be aware that that's what will be discussed in this particular segment of Oh, and Another Thing. And true to an Oates fashion, the episode that I'm referring to happens to be our 18th episode of this season. Was it the 18th? No, 17th episode. This Oates is coming up between the 17th and the 18th episode. So, um, as you know, we all record a little bit earlier than what is released, so we can kind of stay ahead of production and clean up things if necessary. But the oats are recorded, you know, no rehearsal, no. Well, none of them are rehearsed. I'm just saying the oats are recorded as a response to certain things. It's sort of like the afterthought that you're like, oh yeah, I meant to say this, and you do an oats, especially if it's worth discussing. So I felt like there was a little bit more context that was needed for the things that was being mentioned in episode 17. In no way is it an excuse. It's more of a realization from my perspective on what trauma is and what it means to me, or what I recognize to be as, oh yeah, that was trauma. And again, like I said, I think it's different from person to person. And so my definition, if you will, of it is in no way the this is what it should mean, or this is what it, and I don't disregard anyone's um, life or experiences and their perspective on what it is and how they process that. And that's kind of sort of the nutshell of what trauma is all about. We label it as trauma, but it's really, to me, again, to me, it's someone's means of relating, understanding, and their response, i.e., cope, and getting on with things, if you will, towards those experiences that they have. I think because of that, it's hard for people to say in that moment, oh, this is trauma or this is traumatic. It's something that is usually defined by someone else, or based, or someone says of themselves after the fact, based on the definition given to somebody else. House got on fire. That was a very traumatic event. Was it at the time? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the person's situation. Um, but it definitely is an event of perspective because someone in a house fire could be very dramatic, but a fireman's in a house fire, and to them, it's it's a means of rescuing people. It is a occupation. It's a different perspective of the same scenario, or of the same scenery, but it's just it doesn't degrade what it is that someone is experiencing from that perspective that they're having, but it can be, the scenery can be the same but then be received differently. I think someone told me before that childhood trauma is the least addressed in that moment. It's always like when you're an adult, not always, but it's further on in your experience of the life that you kind of reflect back and you try and make sense of what it was that you were experiencing as a child, whether you're doing it or you're doing it by way of a therapist. Um, so in the 17th episode, we were talking about different things, and it was just it started off with a real dump of things, and I think that the context to it all, because like I mentioned before, the dinosaur and I talk about, we've known each other for years, and so we've talked about different things that aren't really mindful or privy to the people that are listening to our episodes. So again, it's not really like coming to an giving an excuse or feeling like I need to explain myself and or justify myself. It's just giving some of you, okay, where is this all coming from? What do you mean? Whoa, what? You had what happening? It's sort of, so here it is. Um, by definitions that that others have given, I had somewhat of a dysfunctional family. Not, but I can't say myself that saw it as a dysfunctional upbringing, if that makes sense. Again, this is my perspective. It's not, other people might have gone through similar things, and I'm sure other people have gone through worse. So I'm not even trying to rank it. Um, and if you've gone through something similar, uh, you might feel a certain way about your perspective versus mine. And again, I shouldn't even have said versus. I'm not trying to compare anything like that. But on one side, it was well, on all sides, it was very religious. Um, you, if you went to one church service in the week, you must have been sick the other 6 days in the week. So there was probably some church activity going on at least, 2 times a week, 3 times pretty much was the average. Um, Slow period, and then you had week-long events and whatnot as well. And that that was its own level of pressures because you had certain things to live up to for from a religious aspect of it. But then also in relation to my family, it was like there was a there was there was this dysfunctional aspect of it because my mom's family were being raised differently than what we were experiencing as that I was experiencing as a kid. And so there was a little bit of a separation, not even in the methods of which that was happening, but then it also physically, like lived on the other side of town, basically. And so there's already that dynamic of, oh, you're on this side of town and we're on that side of town. And just by the way I'm enunciating it, you already get the picture of what this side of town and that side of town meant. So as a kid, it's like you're getting both worlds, but at the same time, there's a level of there's a mentality that is cultivated in one versus the other. I feel like that was never something that was addressed, and there's a little bit of like, okay, it wasn't addressed because some people didn't know any better on how to address it. There was also some sort of understanding of how to raise your kids based on the example you were given on how to raise kids. And if that was a shitty example, then you're kind of sort of going in your own scene with a half-baked bag of shit already. And I get that. I get that that's something that a lot of people can't avoid. They can't do anything about it, especially if they don't know any different. You know, but and and I think parenting, you're always striving to do better than what it was that, well, you should be always striving to do better than what you were raised as, but the perspective on what better is highly that's a wide definition. You know, what is better? Like, okay, I won't be as much of an alcoholic as my dad was. You know, okay, well, how much was that? Well, he drank a case. So I'm just going to drink a six pack. See, I'm better. Uh, And I am being kind of facetious with that, but you get the point. Um, the difference for me is like a lot of what I experienced with the rest of my family, I did not experience with my parents. With the rest of my family, it was alcoholism, it was some degree of drug use, it was violence on a regular basis, mainly violence towards each other, and sometimes bleeding over to other people outside of the family. Not necessarily a lot of gangs. Gangs were around, but gangs weren't to the prevalence that it is now in comparison. It was less gangs and more drug fallout. You know, by fallout I mean like you were around the people that were on drugs more than you were around people like selling drugs, that kind of thing. So um, when listening to the first 20 minutes of episode 17, you're like, yo, what the fuck is, I mean, I was saying that about myself, listening to me talk about it, and it's kind of reflective listening to the recording. I'm like, God damn it. And, because some of that stuff is internal. Some of that stuff, and honestly, some of that stuff I don't even like when I'm in relationships. I don't even really talk about that kind of thing because I don't want it to be a part of I don't want it to be a part of my life, my um, especially my in the present. I don't want to have that as the thing that is present in whatever relationship I'm in at that time. And I'm not saying that like I fight the urge to be physically abusive to people that I'm in a relationship with. No, that's far from it. I don't have. Well, let me make sure I'm abundantly clear with that. I've never done anything physically abusive to anyone that I've ever been in a relationship with, even in situations where someone has told me they wanted me to be, which we've talked about that before in previous episode. Uh, I've been around a lot of abuse, and I'm so glad that I made the decision to hold myself accountable to never be in, react like, or even teeter around different aspects that I associate with it. And so I guess let me define abuse. Um, to me, there's more than just physical abuse. There's emotional abuse, and there's physical abuse. There's outright neglect. Favoritism is another form of abuse, for sure. But it's a lot more subtle. I had the whole gamut of it. Like I mentioned, my step grandfather was alcoholic, hardcore. Like I said, and never really knew of him not being drunk. He was very functional drunk, and then also a belligerent drunk. So um, I admit that yeah, I was around him more when he was a functional drunk than belligerent. Um, both in both states, he was physically abusive, and he would beat up on my grandmother. He would fight his own kids, my aunts and uncles, um, and in turn, they would fight him and each other. Threatened to fight their mom. I don't I honestly can say I don't know if that any either of them actually went through with that. It was very, very eat your own environment. They would buddy, you know, my aunts and uncles would buddy with each other, one day and then literally be swinging, trying to stab and cut the other with a butcher knife the next day. Um, None of it was ever hidden. None of it was ever like, "Hey, y'all go play outside," and then they fight. No, it was you. You might have them tumble on top of you. You might, be sitting there eating at the kitchen table, and over by the kitchen sink, there's two adults going at it, and swinging, punching, and got a pot or a pan or something, trying to knock the other's head off. I did mention in the episode 17 that my uncle did break my step grandfather's jaw when they had a fight. He hit him, broke his jaw, but true to form with alcoholism, my step grandfather, while still on meds, drank beer through a straw and would want me to get his straws. Why am I saying all this? I think that there's clarification in regards to um, that's needed in regards to my reaction to the labeling of trauma and my understanding of what some people might consider to be trauma. I don't really ever go around saying that I had a traumatic upbringing or that I experienced trauma because there was no label for me to fall back on to say that that was trauma at that time. I think that for me, it was this is just how it is was more of the state of being as opposed to I don't want to be over there because it's so traumatic to me. I honestly didn't have the vote, I didn't have the means of saying, "Oh, I'm going to stay home by myself." As a kid, you just didn't. You went and you were dropped off where your parents took you and dropped you off. So very seldom did we have a vote, and honestly have the balls or ovaries to even want to vote. You disconnected yourself from scenes. You saw it. You picked up on cues real quick. Like you saw how okay, shit's about to go down. So you went outside and played, or you sat with the dogs outside, just because it's way better than possibly being in the shit that's going on inside the house. And like I mentioned in the episode, it was, I mean, everything occurred except for calling the police. So the police were never involved and very seldom would go in that neighborhood anyway, unless someone was in serious shit, shot, stabbed, or dead. That's really the only time that I saw the police. So any domestic issue, it was being handled domestically, which really didn't bring any solutions or means of justice or someone being reprimanded for anything that they were saying. So you sort of, even as a victim, was, like my grandmother was, just felt like, okay, this is what I'm going to live with. I think that at one point, later on in life, she eventually was like, had considered on leaving him. And I remembered that there was like a impromptu meeting at my parents' house. It's like, okay, she was over here. My grandmother was over here. It was like, okay, you're out of the house. You don't have to go back. You can just stay here with us. And it was some weird decision that was made where she had some sort of feeling like, me healing up over here and getting better is probably going to open his eyes on how good he had things. So he's probably going to change his ways now. It was like total justification of things. But it was a weird thing of where there was a realization by everyone that there has been years of abuse going on, and now there's the opportunity right here and now in this moment for you to get yourself out of that. And I don't know if it's a stereotypical thing in regards to abuse. It's like, and she went back, which is also one of those things where, and I keep referring to it because that was the episode that it happened. Season 2, episode 17, where I make this statement about how I can't understand. I never could understand, nor do I can't accept that my mom would say she never knew that we were in a situation like that, that she was taking us there and abuse was going on. When that kind of thing was happening while she was living there, as a kid. So it had been going on for decades. And I have a hard time accepting her saying that and not just like, you know what, that's a lie. That's just you wanting to feel better about yourself. I have a hard time, and the reason why I react that way is because I specifically remember the moment I was just talking about where my grandmother was pretty banged up. She was over here at my parents' house resting up. And there was this discussion about you don't have to return. So you're trying to have an intervention over abuse that you know is going on, but at the same time, you're saying you didn't know that abuse was going on. That's why it's like it totally contradicts itself. You can't tell me you didn't know that was happening when you wanted to, like I said, to basically have an intervention over something that's is happening. Um, And again, the dinosaur makes a reference to it being generational, and I have no doubt about that. I'm sure that the example of what a relationship is supposed to be is what my grandmother was given, and so she knew of this as what was shown to her. Um, and I'm guessing she made it as best as she could, but at the same time, am I giving that an excuse? I guess in a way, maybe I am, but I don't know. I maybe. Same thing for my parents. Sure. Am I giving? I mean, am I giving it an excuse? Maybe because she's just taking. In her head, she's like, I'm having you spend time with your grandparents. But man, God damn it! Like when you've locked yourself in a room because you don't want your drunken step grandfather to come and beat you after he is done beating your grandmother, and you hear that on the other side of the door, it's hard to assume that Well, and how much of that is theater of the mind? How much of what it was an argument. There were like very, very physical arguments. How much of that was beating? I don't know because the door was closed. But in my head, it it was a very, very physical argument. I'll rephrase it as that. So if that's what's going on with no filter, just none, don't no care that children are around and exposed to it. When 3 to 5 children are around at a time exposed to the varying examples I just gave, it's hard to refute that you didn't know. I mean, it's hard to say you didn't know any of it was going on. When I know for a fact, I was saying, "Hey, yeah, your sister and your brother got in a fight today in front of us, or your two sisters got in a fight, or this or that, or so stuff like that." Um, in regards to in regards to wellness checks, yes, I have had to go um, more than I wanted to ever go to check on my one of my uncles. That's like the dinosaur was saying, the black sheep of the family, and check on him, check on the well-being, fix this, fix that, because nobody else was wanting to do anything for him. And it was it's the thing is, to answer more directly the dinosaur's question is like, when did I become such the caretaking bitch? I think that it's one of those when you're the person that does what like if I tell you something, that's pretty much what I'm doing. If I tell you, okay, I'm done with that shit, I'm done with that. If I'm doing this, or if I'm going here, or if I'm okay, we're gonna be doing that, that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. Hey, I'm gonna come over, I'm gonna do this. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Okay, because once I'm gonna give you all the means of you doing what you need to do, but if I have to come, then that's when shit's happening. And so I think that people that see other people that are like that, they know that they're the person that will get shit done. And so some people they rely on that. They sit back and let that be the thing that, all right, he'll do it, because I mean once he says it, that's what happens. That's gonna get done. And so when you become the person that is that way, and then you start seeing that other people just kick their feet up and just let you do it, that's the point where I got, and I was like, you know what, fuck that, because I didn't want to be that person that was one doing this shit while other people sat back and then just wanted to get the report. Okay, well, how's this? How's that? How's the house? How's this? How's that? Especially if you don't care for that person, why the fuck do you care about what just went down that you just didn't care about in the fucking beginning? So, uh, yeah, because one of my uncles they don't really care for, and he's completely detached himself from the others because of that. When you realize you're the joke, when you realize that you are deemed uh the crazy one or the bad one, or when you're not taken seriously and respected like others, then you just say, okay, I don't want to subject myself to that shit, and that'd be that. And that's been the case with this one uncle of mine. And as I made a point of another incident and didn't really expound upon it. It was one point where both grandparents are gone, And so their children all got um, the children all got ownership of the house, which I was making a reference of it. That was a shit idea because now you've got these tumultuous siblings now having to share this one thing. That's literally like giving kids that hate each other a toy. They're never going to agree on it. They're never going to um, see use of it in the way that they think. I mean, you got multiple perspectives of how to manage a house, and only one of them has literally had only one of them has had a house. So at the time, all of them but this one uncle had a place to live, and he had since moved back right before my step grandfather died. My grandmother had already died, and so those two were the only ones left in the house, and so he was already living there, and so it became a thing of okay, he's living there, but we all have ownership of the house. Well, if you hate that one, there are going to be some that want to move him out, and if you're trying to divide the if the responsibility and the vote per se is divided against multiples, then you're also leaning towards this majority factor. So maybe some of you can see where this is going. So eventually it becomes this huge war of attrition, to the point that the rest of them miraculously, honestly, I have to say miraculously, they all gave up. And so my uncle gets to, just stayed in the house, and they all gave up on trying to being able to work with each other, separated, got their separate share and said, fuck it. So that's how that situation laid out. And since then, things just evolved to the point that no one goes over there, let alone steps in the house. And the few times that I've gone over, I've spent more time standing outside the house or sitting on the steps of the house than actually going in it. But each and every time, they all want pictures. They all want to know, okay, what does this look like? What did he do with this? Okay, what does he look like? Did you take a picture of him? Where is this? Where is that? But the most recent times, it's been for wellness checks to see if he was even alive. And one particular, the last time where it became where I said fuck it, um, was when I was calling on my uncles and aunts to like, hey, y'all need to come over here. Your brother might be dead. And there was like, well, I mean, how do you know that? And so I had to, like saying in the episode, I had to, by way of calling and talking to representatives of the police and the fire, mainly police, um, get what was the protocol. I'm parked outside of the house. I'm in the adjoining driveway, and I'm getting step by steps from the police on like, okay, if you're gonna do you're in the middle of the wellness check. Now you're wanting to enter the home. If you can't because you don't have keys, door has to be broken down. If the door has to be broken down, we can't do that. I was like, oh, okay, well, who does it? Well, you got to call the fire department. They have to do that. But the fire department can't go in the house. Once they break down the door, then the police, which will by then will be on scene, and then they can go through the house with you in case there's any foul play or discovery of a body. So getting all of that information and then conveying that to his siblings, there was the hesitation of even joining me for that discovery and how things would evolve. That was when, um, like, I can, that's a situation I can handle, and I would rather handle that over my mom. But at the same time, that was a situation that made it abundantly clear to me that I am doing things they're, that they have no care of. And I get it. Situations go the way they go, and you fall in and out of relationships with people, and that can be the same said for your brothers and sisters and siblings and other family members. I totally understand that because I'm very much that type of person where if I'm done with you, I'm done with you. I don't care how we're related. It's a wrap. It's done. And there's no, if there's any type of rekindling, there's nowhere near where it was prior. That's just that's just how I am. I get, that's a bleed over of upbringing and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but I'm very much a person like that. I think though the totality of it, where it's like, yo, even to this extent, there's no desire for engagement. It's like, okay, I'm not coming to you and giving you this information so you can make jokes and laugh and ha at me for doing what you should have been doing. And if you don't give a fuck about doing that, why am I doing it for you? I in turn don't give a fuck. And if you feel guilty because you're treating someone like this your own way, but yet you're so super religious and godly, then that's your own conflict. And I am not going to pacify that. I'm not going to be the one that satiates that fuck you, but hey, tell me how they're doing anyway, while the other person's back is turned. You're going to say fuck you to their face, but then, okay, hey, send this over there to them and, make sure they don't know it's from me, but they, just so that you can sleep better at night. No, fuck that. Take your ass over there and drop it off yourself and have a discussion with them. So that's how that all evolved. I think that, and I haven't discussed all of it. I'm just hitting the high points of what it was that was brought up in the 20 minutes, first 20 minutes or so of episode 17, just to give more context where I'm coming from, my perspective about it. And again, how I don't see it as trauma, but I can see it as what people would label as trauma. Um, what is trauma to me? What is trauma to you? What is trauma to other people that we know? It's a moving it's a very, very, um, it's a, it's a definition that constantly morphs. Two people can go through the same traumatic situation and, what we deem to be traumatic, they can go through the same situation and one can have trauma over it where the other one doesn't, or one can have a different level of trauma over it. They're both traumatized by it, but one deals with it one way, one deals with it the other, or one has night terrors and PTSD over it, and the other one not so much. They don't, or maybe they develop a little bit of something on the side that's a little bit reminiscent to OCD because of it. It's hard to gauge that, but they would, you went through the same scenario, the same thing. Yeah, okay. And then some people they mentally block it out, like like um, like the dinosaur was mentioning about my mom, and there's probably like some blank time, so to speak, of where, she experienced things, and it was just like, whoop, nope, not really. I don't remember any of that. No, I don't. No, because I know if I talk to her about certain things, I can see where that is still there. Like she'll just completely freeze up and not have anything to say. Just totally like, whoa. So it's a weird thing because I think those things linger in us in some sort of background frequency in some sort of way. I think that as situations change, maybe it comes a little bit more to the forefront. I know that with I know that with my mom and her relationship with my dad now is more reminiscent to me of how my grandmother, her mom, was with my stepdad, my step, my step grandfather. It's very chore-ish. Um, it's not, it's not a couple aspect of it where it's very endearing and caring, nurturing and whatnot. It's very short. The patience level is gone, and things have been eroded. And I know that's a whole nother situation, a whole nother discussion, but I think they're easier to go into that type of response and that type of existence if you have something like what her mom was going through as an example, that this is the kind of thing. And when you see violence and when you see the way people are talking, and you want to give it back, and you want to, now it's my turn to get some licks in. Now it's my turn to, bring someone down, talk someone down, or tell them their shit. And that's what my aunt and uncles did all the time. Like I said, they would do some very, very manipulative shit to say things around people, knowing that, like I would give the example, they would talk down about my mom and say how they didn't care for her at all in front of me, knowing that they wouldn't say that to her in her face, but that they knew if I brought it up to my mom would get mad, bring conflict, confront them, say, "Hey, why are y'all saying this about me?" What they would know, she knows because he told her. Then when she's out of the scene, they come back and go after me. Um, yeah, that's a whole nother like means of projecting your dislike and disdain. If I can't get at your mom directly, I'm going to get to her through her child. It's bizarro. The abuse is very, very real. Not always physical, but also mentally. Like I said, degrading degrading the kids, degrading people because of how they are, not necessarily wanting to know how that person is or get to know them as a person, but wanting to shape them into how they should be by way of their definition of what was cool or what was the way that somebody should be, especially if they had no understanding or any way of connecting with the things you were into. Then it was immediately shot down and you were told that ain't that ain't shit. You should be doing this, this, and this. If not, you dumb. So bottom line, I didn't have much of a connection with certain people in my life that I held in regard because I wanted, I saw them as great people. The older I got, I really saw, that the magic of what adults are, um, as a kid fades over time as you start to do more adult things. You start realizing more about, you get some more awareness of what things are, how people are in the interactions, and that happens with examples that you have with people that are really, really genuine people and really good examples in your life. So again, do I take it all in as trauma? Um, I, I don't I don't recognize it as trauma. Um, I'm not saying that it's not, but I don't sit back and say, that's the trauma I have, or that was a very traumatic upbringing, or I just used them all as examples of what I didn't want, how I didn't want to be, what I didn't want in relationships with people, how I didn't want to go about doing things with people. And so, Dinosaur talks about me not ever consuming alcohol or drugs. That's why. This is why, this is why. Because I had examples of people that I didn't want to be anything like. Um, same thing with abuse, same thing with degrading who you're in relationships with. Because again, you can just imagine, like, okay, if this is the upbringing, imagine what they're like with their boyfriends, girlfriends, and other partners that they were with. That you already know the story didn't go well with a lot of them. So yeah, that's the that's more of a fuller context of what the 20 minutes was all about. Again, this wasn't to be an excuse. This is more bonus content, which is the point for all and another thing segments. Um, so hopefully this gives a better understanding of what what that part of the episode was all about. Hopefully this helps somebody in relation to, okay, here's someone's view, or here's someone's experience with potentially a traumatic situation, but that they don't see it as traumatic because they didn't. I just didn't have the definition. I mean, the word. Like, I'm in a scenario and I'm like not even really recognizing it as like, oh, this is what is considered to be traumatic. None of that ever popped in my head. So all I can say is, like, I hope that people find the means of being themselves. Stick to that no matter what people are saying, even if it is part of your family, even if it is those people that you consider to be friends. You might need to redefine what the friendship is, and the people that you consider to be friends. Being true to yourself is like number fucking one thing to do. And I really hope that if there's anything to grab out of this, it's being true to yourself. Well, the few things, not just one, but being true to yourself. And people that there are people that are going to be examples in your life that probably that I hope you realize that they're examples of something that you don't want to be. And so you really strive and you maintain and you stick to not being that kind of thing. I can't tell you how many people wanted to get me drunk. Still, I mean, just their goal. They literally told me their goal was to get me drunk. People that wanted me on some sort of drugs, some sort of drinking this at whatever. I can't tell you how many people, so many different ways, wanted to. Their focus was to do that for me, and I had to. I stuck to not. I stuck to not because that's how much I did not want to be like the people I grew up with and the people that were supposed to be examples for me. And they were, but they just were examples in ways that I guess they probably didn't think they would be. I mean, they just weren't. Now, now on the other side of that, my relationship with the rest of my family like that is kind of meh. Is very, very event driven. It's not really following up on a daily basis of how they are. Um, and that's just kind of that's the product of things, I think. Like, you wish people well and you hope that they get better, but at the same time, you got to be more focused on yourself and making sure that you're being the best you can for you, and that you're putting yourself in the best situations you can for yourself also. So yeah, that's it. Hope this helped somebody in some way. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But hope this helps at least to understand my perspective of certain things. Again, like I said, it's not a, and by no way is it a definition, justification, or an excuse. It's just giving more context, more bonus material for you to really digest what was being dumped in a 20 or so minute portion. So thanks everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. Again, thank you for listening to The Dinosaur and the Dude. We never really even thought we'd get past 12 episodes, let alone be in the second season and going this many episodes and further beyond. I mean, it's great. Uh, Hopefully, everybody gets something out of all the content that we put out and all the episodes that we put out, not just this one. And if you're looking for more, feel free to go to TheDinosaur&TheDude.com. Check us out. All the means of listening to us and the merch are available. We're going to be dropping some more merch. We meant to do that earlier this year, but lazy is as lazy does. So gotta get on top of that. But again, TheDinosaur&TheDude.com. Thanks everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you in the next episode. Yeah. And about, well, I don't know when that'll be. I mean, I don't know when you're listening to this, but we'll talk to you in the next episode. All right. Thanks. Oh, yeah. And I hope that no one got blasted away by the eclipse or overwhelmed by rising cicadas or, everybody in Carbondale and Giant Lake are still okay and not, changed into mutants. We say a lot of, basically we say a lot of stuff during the podcast that, again, it's for entertainment purposes only, but, it's steeped in a lot of the things that we do experience in life, thus the majority of this oat segment. But as far as people getting blasted away by the eclipse, we're really hoping that. Hope everybody's safe. Hope everybody that, didn't look at the sun, the eclipse during that time. If you did look at the eclipse without eyewear, you deserve whatever blindness you got. Okay. Now, bye. Now, I'll check you later. Okay.